Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, where today, Sergeant Broken Rubber... I think this is a North American server replay, which means that's actually quite a funny name. For those of you who don't get it, a rubber is what Americans refer to as a condom. Yes. I actually had an American exchange student from Michigan in my class at boarding school in South Africa. What was his name? Paul Kundinger, that was it. Yeah, from a German-American family. And I can't remember which class we were in, but one of the girls shouted across the classroom to one of the other girls if they could borrow her rubber. And this American kid freaked. Oh God, did she just say that in front of everybody? The teacher didn't even bat an eyelid. Yeah, we had to explain to him what a rubber was. A rubber, for those of you who are not in the continental North America, is a pencil eraser. Right, yeah, anyway. We're supposed to be talking about tanks, aren't we? Yes, anyway, Sergeant Broken Rubber here in the French Tier 10 heavy tank, the AMX M454. We actually featured this tank quite recently. Although it was using a different gun. It has a choice of two, 120 and a 130mm gun. And Sergeant Broken Rubber is using the 130mm gun, which hits harder, a lot harder. It does something like 35% more damage than the 120, but it has a slower rate of fire, a slower aiming time, and it doesn't have as much penetration. It's still got decent penetration, at least what used to be decent penetration by Tier 10 heavy tank standards, 250mm. But it probably hasn't escaped your attention that Sergeant Broken Rubber has an almost exclusive 100% gold ammunition loadout. I mean, not actually 100%, he has 5 rounds of high explosive, but he does have 25 rounds of gold and no standard armor piercing, and this gives him 296mm of penetration. Now, I'm not here to whine, bitch and complain about gold ammo. If you don't like gold ammunition, then you shouldn't be playing World of Tanks, because it's here to stay, particularly at higher tiers like this. But it's interesting that the gold ammo on this tank with this gun is not APCR or high explosive anti-tank. It's regular ballistic capped armor piercing, just with better penetration. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. Unlike APCR gold ammo, it doesn't have especially high shell velocity. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing because, well, when you're firing gold APCR, the increased shell velocity does make it a lot easier to reliably be able to hit moving targets at long range. Completely stationary targets at ranges like that, of course, it doesn't really matter what ammunition you're firing. But the thing about loading APCR gold is that you do have to suddenly recalculate the amount of lead that you need to give to a target if you've been firing regular armor piercing. That isn't the issue with this ammunition. The relatively lower shell velocity does of course mean that it loses more penetration over range, and Sergeant Broken Rubber and the Chieftain there have both decided that they really need to be backing off here, and the VZ up front probably should be paying attention, but he's not, and is in severe danger of being outflanked and surrounded, which is obviously why Sergeant Broken Rubber and the Chieftain P are falling back. The other common type of gold ammo, probably the most common type of gold ammo, is high explosive anti-tank or heat. And the benefit of heat is that all the magic happens at the point of impact. It doesn't matter how far away the target is, it doesn't matter what your shell velocity is. Oh, nice hit there on the Type 4 head? Yeah. Yeah, with heat ammunition you have the same penetration at all ranges and all shell velocities, because it's what happens when the shell impacts the target armour. That's what gives heat ammo its high penetration. The problem with heat, and the problem that you don't have with this armor-piercing ballistic capped gold ammo, is heat can be very easily defeated if it doesn't directly strike the actual physical armour of the target, if it gets absorbed by the tracks or spaced armour. Heat is 100% ineffective. You don't have that problem with this ammunition. And these are a couple of the reasons why... I mean, I understand a lot of the complaints that people have about gold ammunition, and I realise that even I myself often say, just press the 2 key and load the gold, the practical alternative to skill. But there is a little bit more to it. It's not just an I win button. You do have to, particularly if you're using high explosive anti-tank ammo, think about where on the target you're actually aiming, because it will make a difference. It's not just better penetration. Although with this 130mm armor-piercing ballistic capped ammo, it really kind of is. And again, I'm not having a go at Sergeant Broken Rubber for using an almost... Oh, you've got to be kidding. Did you see that? You got a huge armoured box of attack like that, you have to at least attempt to angle it. Going for the lower glacis there on the E100, who seems to be tricked out in some kind of Warhammer 40k armour skin. Here comes the 60TP. Again, lower plate. You can see why the two of them, him and the chieftain, you can see why they fell back now, yeah? And the VZ55 who didn't, you can see why he's dead now, yeah? Yeah. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, gold ammo. Like I said, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be playing World of Tanks, particularly at higher tiers. What are we aiming for there? Because that was just a flat miss. Is he going for the turret ring? I think he's going for the turret ring on the E100. I'm not sure whether or not... Because the E100's turret front is a very, very flat target. It's not angled particularly well, and if you have the raw penetration, you'll just punch right through it. I would have thought 296mm was enough raw penetration. Usually between shots you'll see E100s angle their turret slightly in order to increase the effective armour of that turret front, because there are a lot of tanks that can just punch right through it. I'm surprised, I mean, I'm pretty sure this tank could... Oh hello. Wow, how did that miss? But even though he probably could have just punched right through the front the E100's turret, it's nice to see that he is still aiming for weak spots. Is that guy AFK, that chieftain? Third time lucky. No, he has turned. Oh, he's not AFK, he's firing back. Right, things are not looking good here at all, are they? The team are losing 5 kills to 8, and they're at a 3,000, or they were at a 3,000 health disadvantage. Although that health disadvantage is going to start to even out rapidly if tanks like that Waffenträger E100. I mean, okay, he got the kill, but I'm not entirely sure it was worth it. Been seeing a lot of waffle tractors in World of Tanks lately at high tiers. It turns out there's a rental available, which explains a lot. It explains why you've seen so many of them, and it explains why they're being played so hilariously badly. They've managed to pull the kills back a bit. They're only 1 kill behind now, but the enemy team still have that 3,000 point health advantage. And at this stage of the game, that means the enemy team almost have double the amount of hit points of the remaining tanks on Sergeant Broken Rubber's team, and that is not good. You know what we could really use right now? An enemy tank with a load of health doing a YOLO run right across the middle of the map. Yeah, that'll redress the health balance. Okay, he's killed the standard B. Oh wait, it wasn't even him, it was the Jagdtiger who had been threatening the base from the eastern flank. The Jagdtiger who'd been shooting up the standard B and was about to kill him anyway. So the E5 just basically sacrificed all his health for nothing. Well, what can we say? Thank you for your service. Your sacrifice is not unappreciated. The kills are even. The enemy team no longer have a 3,000 hit point advantage, although the proportion of remaining hit points is still about the same. But we're now at the stage where the tanks surviving have so little health that whoever gets the first shot off is probably going to end up killing somebody. The T-30 over there. He's not going to be interested in popping his nose out and spotting that Jagdtiger with that much health remaining, is he? Can't really say we blame him. We'd really like to know where that Jagdtiger is, though. Oh, hang on a second. Really? Seriously? You just saw what happened to the T110E5, and he had full health. And a rock to hide behind. Neither of which did him any good, and you thought that you were going to do better? Fair enough. I saw in the comments of the recent World of Tanks video somebody laughing at Wargaming's suggestion that only 5% of all ammunition fired was gold ammo. And it's understandable. I mean, it does seem like an utterly ridiculous claim to make, particularly when you look at Sergeant Broken Rubber here, who's already gone through 25 rounds of gold and is on to his last 4 rounds of high explosive, having already fired 1. But I don't know for a fact that Wargaming are not lying when they say that only 5% of all ammunition fired in World of Tanks is gold, but I suspect that they're probably telling the truth. You may find that very hard to believe, particularly if you play tier 8, 9 and 10 battles, where, oof, took a nasty shot in the ass there from the M60. He's still hidden up there in the church. But yes, you may find that very hard to believe, particularly if you play tier 8, 9 and 10 battles, where it can often seem like, well, Wargaming say 5%. The statistic feels more like 50. I mean, there's a 5 in it, but it's not 5. But here's the thing. When they say no more than 5% of all ammunition fired in World of Tanks is gold ammo. Oh, nice job by the Foch 155 tracking down and killing the EBR all the way up there at the enemy base. You have to remember that they're talking about all ammunition fired, not just the tier 8, 9 and 10. And there's an awful lot of little tanks at tiers 1, 2, 3 and even tier 4 that go through a lot. I mean hundreds of rounds of 20mm autocannon ammunition, none of which is gold, and that massively skews the percentages. So for example, let's say Sergeant Broken Rubber, he's asking the chieftain up there to wait for him for some assistance so they can deal with the M60 together, but let's say Sergeant Broken Rubber had entered this battle with a 100% gold loadout, 30 rounds of gold. Normally you don't get to empty your ammunition storage. You'll probably fire about half of that, so let's say he fired 15 shots. Meanwhile, down at tier 2 there's a tank with a 20mm autocannon that fires 300 shots, none of which are gold, because unless you're in a Panzer 2J you don't spend money on gold at tier 2 or 3. Sergeant Broken Rubber and the chieftain. I mean, you're the one with the health, chieftain. You go? No? Okay, whatever. Nice, bounced it, missed the return shot, but that's no problem. Teamwork, the chieftain will finish it. And that just leaves the Yak Tiger. And the T-30's even still alive, holding the base. So anyway, yes, back to our example. Our example of how Wargaming don't lie, but they just present the statistics in a way that is favourable to their argument. So you've got a tier 10 tank with 30 rounds of gold, fires 15, and you've got a tier 2 tank with 300 rounds of 20mm autocannon ammo, none of which is gold, and it fires all 300. Obviously I'm simplifying things here just for the sake of illustrating the statistic, but there you go, 5% of all ammunition fired was gold ammo. Even though at tier 10 that's 50%, and at tier 2 it's practically zero. 5% of all ammunition fired in World of Tanks was gold ammo. Even though it's 50% where it matters, at tiers 8, 9 and 10. So they can come out with these statistics with a perfectly straight face, knowing that technically they're not lying. They're just not telling you the whole story. They didn't say 5% of all ammunition fired at tiers 8, 9 and 10 is gold ammo. They said 5% of all ammunition fired in the whole of World of Tanks is gold ammo, which is a believable statistic. You see, the facts themselves are almost entirely unimportant. It's all in how you manipulate and present the facts. Yeah. Oh, there's the Yak Tiger. Oh, he's dead. The Foch 155 got him. Right, yeah. That was 10,000 damage done, by the way. I know it looks like 9,500 if you look at the damage meter down at the bottom left corner of the screen, but he did fire a blind shot at the beginning of the match that did actually strike the target. That was 10,000 damage done. And yet, that is a lot. Although, when you have a gun that does 560 average damage and the enemy team conspire amongst themselves to allow you to survive long enough to fire 27 shots during the course of the game, it's perhaps not altogether surprising. I'll tell you what is surprising, though. There's a saying in World of Tanks: the team with the most EBRs, or any EBRs, or the EBR that stays alive the longest, is always the team that's going to win. And the enemy team had the EBR that stayed alive the longest. Sergeant Broken Rubber's team lost their EBR relatively early on, and the enemy's EBR was the third last tank to die. The Foch 155 caught him and killed him around his own cap circle. And yet, the rule still holds, because in order to count, the EBR has to actually be playing the game. And the EBR on the enemy team, down there at the bottom of the team list, with 0 damage, 0 kills, and 0 experience, was AFK the entire battle. He never moved, he never fired, he just I don't know what he was doing, but it wasn't playing World of Tanks. So the enemy team did not, in fact, have an EBR, so the rule still holds. The team with the EBR always wins. Also, it is nice to see at the end of the battle there that Sergeant Broken Rubber and Shadow 2233 in the Chieftain had the sense to form an impromptu battlefield platoon, so that in addition to everything else that the two of them accomplished during the course of that battle, they also managed to score the Brothers in Arms Award, which you can only get if every member of the platoon survives the battle and scores at least 3 kills. And of course at that point, they were both alive, they both had at least 3 kills, and there was just the enemy Jagdtiger remaining to be accounted for. So congratulations, well done to them both, not just for their teamwork and the damage and kills that they scored, but also having the sense to realise, hang on a second, we can score an easy medal here if we just put our heads together. And I hope you all enjoyed watching it, because that's it for today. As always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.